I had a lawn mowing run 7 years later in the franchised it. Recently, we've just passed 5,000. We're now up to about 5,060. It's just insane. We've got record numbers in trading. I can't explain it in any other way, Ken, except social media. I have a very strong emotional connection with my franchisees. Do something you love and just try to be really, really good at it. That's actually a very good recipe for business. The heart came first and the money later.
This is the Content Capitalists Podcast. We talk to business owners who've used video to grow their businesses to $1 million a year or more. How they did it, what worked, what didn't. Welcome to the Content Capitalists with your host, Ken Okazaki.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast, where we have interviews with businesses who are doing at least $1 million a year and using content as a big part of their strategy. I have someone from Australia today, and to be honest, I only just met him as far as having a live conversation. We've had a couple emails back and forth, but this is the first live conversation that I'm having. So a lot of what you're going to hear is not stuff that I've known before. So I'm going to be asking questions, and when you hear me ask these questions, I'm listening for the answers just as much as you are, because I can't wait to figure out what he's doing, how he's doing it, and why it's working so well. Jim Penman, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be here.
All right. So guys, first of all, if you're listening in the on the audio podcast, I'd recommend you go click the link below and check it out on YouTube. Jim, I see on your is that a blazer you've got there? You're sporting your logo. It says
also on my
uniform. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, whether you're hot or cold, yeah, you can see it. It says Jim's your local expert. So you got the branding down. You've got a beautiful bookcase behind you. You look like you're sitting in a study at home, maybe.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do us a favor and 30,000 foot view. What is your business? Who do you help, and how do you help them?
Well, it started back in 1992 when I was failed university academic, and I had a lawn mowing run, which I part-time student job, which I went full-time. 7 years later in 1989, I franchised it. Somebody asked me at the time how many franchisees I might have one day, and I said, well, if it goes well, maybe 100. We recently just passed 5,000. So We're the biggest franchise chain in the Southern Hemisphere, actually. And covers lots of different areas. Mowing was the original one, less than half now. Cleaning, dog wash, pest control, handyman, 45 different divisions. So we have a franchising model that's very, very Australian, very, very democratic, very egalitarian, where franchisees have a lot of power, and we listen to them. They can even do things like vote out their franchisors and change veto changes to the manual, all kinds of things. So it's a very Aussie, egalitarian, democratic sort of system.
Yeah. And do you see that working uniquely in Australia and not other countries, the way you set up the systems?
It works particularly well in Australia and New Zealand because we've got a very similar culture.
Got it.
We've had a go at North America, and we've got about 60 in Canada, but it's never taken off in the same way. I think our culture is peculiar like that. Australians are very, we don't mind working with their hands, I suppose. If somebody who's been a bank manager in Australia goes out and starts a lawn mowing business, people say, oh, wow, you're working for yourself now. I think in many other countries, they say, what, you're going to be a gardener? I mean, it's that.
Yeah, people might look at it like a step down, right? When really it's just a different career path.
That's right. Well, I spent 15 years as a mowing contractor, part-time, full-time, and it was a great way of making a living. Very flexible, very healthy, outdoors, quite profitable. Yeah, good business.
That makes sense. Tell me, what part of Australia are you in?
Melbourne, down south.
Okay, got it. And are you, when I went to Melbourne, and I've been there maybe 10 times or so, one thing I noticed is that people love their coffee down there. Are you a fan of coffee?
No, I don't.
No, you don't drink coffee. Okay. Because I come from Tokyo, Japan, and literally there are vending machines where you buy coffee and they come out in a can or a plastic bottle. And that's the level of astuteness I had about coffee. And then when I started going to, cafes in Melbourne, my friends turned me into a snob. Now I can't enjoy coffee unless unless I know how much crema there is or whatever all these terms are that they taught me. But that, I guess, if you're not a coffee drinker, we'll put
Not
that
at all.
conversation aside for now. So you said something earlier. You said you have the largest franchise in the Southern Hemisphere. Is that bar none, including all like convenience stores, gas stations, fast food? Like it's bar none the largest. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, obviously, a lot of chains like Subway are larger in terms of numbers. But if you just count Southern Hemisphere, I think we're the biggest by far.
Amazing.
Certainly beats in Australia by a long shot.
Amazing. Okay. So I'm really curious now about how you said briefly how you got into it. Most of the people I interview are in one of two classes. There's the ones who come out of pretty much their mother's womb as an entrepreneur, and they're selling cookies or candy at school, and they progress to that. And then there's the ones who actually go down a corporate path and then switch at some point. Could you tell me about what your path was to figuring out that you're an
was
entrepreneur?
academic. I was interested in the rise and fall of civilizations, and I went to university and did a Ph.D. on that subject, trying to understand the reasons why societies change, why some become wealthy and others didn't. And I always intended that to be my career. It's only when I bombed out of the academic world, my theories were too wildly radical. I wanted to keep on funding my research, which by that time was mostly got to do with biology and biochemistry, genetics. But I had no money and I had no academic future. So I went out and turned my part-time student mowing round into a somewhat larger business. Yeah. Neither born as an entrepreneur nor come from a corporate background. I haven't actually had a job I've worked for anybody else since I was 18. So,
and what was that job at 18?
A barman drink waiter at a guest house.
Okay, got it. So if you had continued down that path, then I read a book that I loved, Guns, Guts, and Germs. Guns, Steel.
Guns, Germs, and Steel. Yeah, Jared
Guns,
Diamond.
Steel. Yeah, there. Loved it. Is that the kind of like the academic studies that you were into? Finding that kind of information, piecing
Jared
it together?
Diamond's fantastic. It's a really brilliant book, and it's beautifully written too. I'm looking at the sort of the biology behind it. My theory is sort of the idea that the way people create civilizations is by developing a form of character, which in animals is associated with mild food restriction. I know that sounds bizarre, but there are reasons for it. For example, if you look at things like the age of puberty, which was a lot later in the 19th century than it is now. But it was also quite early in the 14th century. So it rose to an extraordinary peak, very late puberty in the late century, and then it's declined since then. That is an indication of a change in epigenetics, in actual fact, in the way that our bodies are constructed, which has implications for character. And that's why people became very good at machines. So it's very different from the way you'd ever heard about society thinking about it before. Yeah, and I love the way that Jared Diamond talks about it, but he's talking about the results. I'm talking about the way it happens, the way it's done, the psychology behind it.
Wow. Now I feel like I should go pick up more books on that because like that's opening up a whole new world. Like 99% of my everyday thoughts are about video technology and marketing and social media. And I forget, like, this whole really curious side of me that I kind of shut the door on. Yeah. A little bit cracked. But when someone like you comes along, I'm just like, whoa, I forgot there's that whole other universe of stuff that I'm really, really fascinated. If you want to
get an idea of what I'm doing, go to biohistory.org and you'll see some video that one of my sons did. Right. So it explains what it's about. I've got a major research institute going at the moment, which is funded by my business.
Okay. Well, we'll put a link down below in the podcast show notes if anyone listening wants to see that, or if you're watching on YouTube, check out the description. So let's jump into your PhD. Like, how many years is that to get a PhD in study?
Well, I started in 1971 doing undergraduate. So I would have started in about 1976, and I more or less finished working full-time on it in 1982. Didn't actually get it at
76 to 92. That's a lot. Wait, let me do some math here.
Well, I kept on extending it because I kept on wanting to do more, and I really was in no hurry to finish. I just wanted to develop this thing. Yeah. So
well, that's what, 14 years? Is that right?
Well, I started my studies in 1971 as an undergraduate, and I finished in 1982. So that's kind of like
19 years then. No,
No,
21 years. My math is so bad right now. But
no,
okay.
that would be 11, 12 years.
Oh, 70s. Okay. Guys, now you know how good I am at math and why I have to hire people on my team to do things like accounting. So thanks for sharing that. Now, after all that time and you going into, the business you're in now, were there like your peers who were like critical of your decision or kind of wondering like, is this guy okay? Like, why are you switching at such a late stage?
Well, my dad wasn't very impressed. He was an engineer.
Okay.
He thought his son should become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or something like that. So doing history wasn't really a particularly favorable thing for our family. And then when I actually finished up that, didn't even get my Ph.D. originally. I did later and became a gardener. He wasn't impressed. But mind you, to the end of his life, I had about 1,000 franchisees. So I said to him, Dad, it really wasn't such a bad career choice. And he said, I guess not. So
got it.
But what else do you do? I mean, what do you do with a PhD in history? For heaven's sake, there's not many jobs for historians and not people with ideas as radical as mine. So it was just natural. But it's fun, I like.
I guess you write books and you do lectures at universities, pretty much, right? That's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started this business, and how much time did it take before you decided, hey, I should be franchising this out? Like before, when you were solo to actually starting to grow a team?
Well, I really didn't think of it as potentially franchisable because I had a business eventually that got into building up and selling lawn mowing rounds. And I could see the value of that because it gets a person into business. But what I couldn't see is the value of the ongoing fees. Why you keep on paying fees, but once you add a good roster of customers. And I have to say, it wasn't really my initiative so much as a rival. There was a company called VIP, which was established in Adelaide. And I vaguely heard about them doing these things. And they came to Melbourne and they had 250 franchisees, which in those days was huge. 250 is a lot of people, a lot of franchise, even back in 1988. And I just basically panicked. I actually rang them up and said, look, I don't want to compete with you guys. You're obviously too successful. Can I just help to grow VIP, And they said, no, I'm not interested in that. So I said, well, I must try and compete with them. So I actually crashed the franchise for that year, went up to the stand without telling them who I was and said, hey, interested in VIP, can you tell me about it? So they explained how it works. And I thought, okay, good thoughts here, good ideas, but maybe I can do it a bit better. So that's how I started in June 1989, just signed my first franchisee.
Okay. And at that point, how much money were you making, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, not a lot. I mean, I bought a house.
Yeah.
Just bought a house for the first time. I started up with a massive student debt, like $35,000. I mean, you could buy a house back with that in 1982.
Yeah, in Melbourne. Imagine that. Imagine that.
That's right. Couldn't even buy a garden shed these days. And then I was making a bit of money. I mean, I really don't know. I can't even remember how much it was, but it was probably a little bit better than the average income.
Would you say it's above or below six figures for yourself?
Well, don't forget money back in 1989.
Yeah, money back then was worth more. Got it.
Yeah, it probably was a low six-figure income, something like that.
Low six figure. Okay, got it. And that's revenue or like your take home income at that point.
Yeah, well, profitability. But when you say take home, I kept on reinvesting it. I'd always lived cheaply. I had the most decrepit old cars, and the person would back into me in a parking spot. I remember somebody backing into me in a parking lot, and they dent the car. They said, I'm so sorry, I'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. It's that.
So tell me, at that point, how were you acquiring clients? Were you dropping flyers in people's mailboxes, or what was the deal?
Originally, we started off with leaflets. They worked quite well, especially in the early 80s. Local papers were more effective, cost effective. That's one of the reasons I started my business very locally and spread very quickly, because local paper classifieds and the yellow pages. Those are the three main methods we used in those days.
Okay.
Totally different world.
It is. And so right now, we're at the stage where you went and you kind of, got the idea of how their business is structured, what was the next step after that? Once you got the master plan, you want to improve on it. Did you start
Yeah.
right away announcing, "Hey, I'm hiring franchisees," or
It took me 9 months to get a contract, which was a
9
lot.
months to get one contract. Okay.
So I'm 9 months to get a contract, 2 lots of lawyers doing it. Really didn't want to understand what I wanted. They kept on saying, you're being too nice, you're giving your franchisees too much power, nobody does this kind of stuff. So yeah. And then
is that how you differentiate yourself, by democratizing the model more than the competitors?
Yes. What I wanted to do was to make my franchisees into fans. I didn't have much money. I didn't have the resources that my competitors did. So the only way I could do it was to treat them better. So I just did everything I could to make them happy. So the way I used to do it when I was much smaller than my rival is I had a list of my current franchisees with their phone numbers. And if somebody come to me and said, well, why would I buy from you when you're running your business from your basement? Well, this company is obviously much better established. Why? And I said, well, there's some differences, but main thing is, here's a list of my franchisees. I want you to go away and ring any of them, all of them, and ask them what it's like. And then I said, you go and get a list of their franchisees and ask them. The thing is, I was being a bit precious because I knew they wouldn't give them the list because I knew that guys weren't as happy as mine. But that's what did it. It wasn't me so much selling it. It was the fact that my people were happy. So yes, we called
Amazing.
it. I even used to make them apply. I'd say, look, to be part of, because I knew the other company, VIP, wasn't selected at all. And I was quite selective. I wasn't going to take anybody on who was likely to fail. I didn't want franchises failing. I wanted them to succeed. So I would actually knock back anybody that I thought wasn't good enough. And one of the ways I did that is I'd send them out on the road with one of my trainers, and I get them to be like marked, get an assessment, A, B, C, D, is how good they are. And if they don't do well, I would not take them. And I made that point. They knew they had to be good enough to be in gyms. So it was kind of like a reverse sell, if you like, but it was real. And it was quite genuine. So I would not take a person I didn't know going to succeed, didn't have good customer service or relationship skills. I wouldn't take them because I wanted them to be successful. So my aim was to get every single franchisee happy.
Yeah,
which even today we don't 100% manage, but we do it pretty well.
And at that time, was it like on a face-to-face interview with them? You just ask them questions and kind of get a feel for it? Or would you actually, how would you know what their customer service was like?
I'm putting them out on the road.
So you'd actually do some test projects with them?
No, not me personally, because I was finishing my walk at that stage. I had some people that I trusted who had very high standards. And I put them out on the road. I think, go and work with this guy for a day or two. And I take them out. No, just things like, for example, if a trainer says, do you want to, when you mow the lawn, you go around the outside once and then you mow straight lines. You do it this way. If there's a hose in the corner of the garden, of the lawn, you pick it up, put it neatly in the garden, you mow under it. There's just things like that. So you tell them to do that. And if they weren't listening to what the trainer said, then they'd fail. Or if it got anything, like a person turned up late, expected to leave at 8, everything ready to go, he turns up at 8:15, doesn't apologize. Now that's a bad sign. So fail. So we just used to say, any sign of anything. Like, for example, you start a person off, the first couple of times you actually show them what to do, unload the mower, do this. After a couple of times, they should be picking up, they should be doing it themselves. So you look for those kinds of characteristics. Actually, you can interview people, and there's good signs of quality. Like, for example, if somebody is asks a lot of good questions or does a lot of research, those kinds of things is a very good indication. Present well, they impress you. That's good. But actually, I used to find on the road was the best way to pick people out, because some people just they go half the day and they say, I'm sick, I've had enough of this, and they go home. Well, if you can't even spend the day in the field, then you're not worth having.
Yeah, makes sense. So I love that. And so just by focusing on, number one, getting the right people in, that will allow new people to vet how good, what it's like working with you. But you'll never get there by accepting everyone. So that's amazing.
And they didn't want bad people in them because they knew it would upset the brand. If a customer has a bad experience with one person, the word gets around.
So that's right.
franchisees will get quite upset when you have a bad operator in the area because it's hurting their business as well. So they have a very strong incentive to keep the standards up.
Yeah. You're teaching me so much right now, and I feel like there are ways I could implement elements of that in my agency. Because, I guess we've never met, but I have a digital media agency. We create content for business owners all over the world, especially US and Australia. So maybe I should start implementing some things like that, being more choosy about who I allow in. And then if someone's thinking about working with me, I'll, with permission from my clients, say, hey, call up these, 10 or 15 people, let them tell you.
We have a system in Jim's, we talk about it. We don't sell franchises, we grant franchises. It always should be an application process. I was doing a training for my franchise yesterday. Yeah. I made that point very strongly. You don't sell, you grant, and you're very selective. I go through all the reasons why it's important to be selective.
Make that line long. Yeah. Okay. So tell me about currently what's going on as far as how are you using content creation? Now, that could be in many formats, podcasts like we're doing right now, video, like which we're also creating, written. How are you using that in your business currently?
I have a wonderful guy, Joel, who's actually come in from a very junior role in the company 10 years ago and has just progressed since then. He's fantastic in that area. What we actually do to a large extent is we do a huge amount, and we find actually it's the primitive stuff that often works better. We've tried things with fairly high production values, and they really don't seem to grab it. But lots and lots of little clips. So, for example, every third Tuesday for an hour, we have a session called Ask Jim, and it's done during our training. So you've got a live audience of probably typically 20, 25 people. They can ask questions, come to them up, and I just answer any question, anything, business, personal,
and this is
history, anything.
In your home or your office, or
it's in a conference center.
In a conference center.
We typically have something over 100 in training. It better be 3 weeks. So,
and these are employees that are asking?
No, these are potential franchisees.
Okay, got it.
So you've got over 5,000 franchisees. Just to maintain that, you need quite a lot of people coming through to go through the thing. So we have a conference center attached to our office. They come, they stay there, they listen to talks. I give a couple of talks myself, try and meet every prospect at least once during that time and, say hello to them and establish some kind of a bond. And one part of that process is this Ask Jim session. Now we have, maybe up to 100 people watching it or live or in person. But the main point of this is you take segments out. So somebody asks a question and then they answer it, and you take that part out and you put it on TikTok or whatever. That's part of it. We do interviews too. Like, for example, we have a lot of good stories. So what we say is, if you come and you do an interview, if you've got any kind of story, you've done fantastic on your first month, or lots of good customer service, or you've done something good for the community, or you've got a certain number of employees, or whatever it happens to be. Any good story, we'll do an interview, which is usually by Zoom, and then we'll give you an Acade voucher, which is worth about $600, which is gets you free accommodation and discounted meals and all kinds of things. So that's a sort of a thank you for that. And so we get these. We do about 500 of these every year. We've got 500 vouchers, so we'll need to do that many. So and then each one of them is a short thing you put out somewhere. And so sometimes things just take off. You don't really know why. The best thing I ever did, I told a joke during Ask Jim, which got 1.6 million views. Wow. Even I think it's a pretty good joke, but it's
okay. Now we have to hear it, and also we'll drop the link down below. What was the joke? I got to hear this.
You want to hear the joke?
I do, absolutely. I think my audience does too.
This is a story about the creation of the world. Okay. And God and Satan team up together. They decide to make a deal where God is allowed to go first and say anything he likes about a country, but Satan has to agree with that, but he can add anything else in. So, all right, God says, let's start with Japan. Japan, good area for you. Japan's going to be a really amazing country. I'm going to make this best country. It's going to have beautiful mountain ranges, very scenic and lovely sea coast, gorgeous country. And the people are going to be very polite and disciplined and hardworking. And Satan said, all right, all of that, but there's going to be so many mountains and sea coasts, there's going to be hardly any flat land at all. And the people will be very polite and hardworking, but they won't be able to relax and enjoy life because of that. So, all right, God said, Africa, not going to make the same mistake. Going to be a country, lots of beautiful sea coasts and mountains, but lots and lots and lots of flat land. And the people will be really fun-loving and happy, and they'll be dancing and singing. The Satan said, right, half the land's going to be jungle and the rest's going to be desert, and the people will be so busy laughing and singing and dancing that you're going to have famine and plague and all kinds of terrible things going on. All right. God said, New Zealand, they're going to get right. This is going to be the best country imaginable. It's going to have beautiful, scenic mountains and sea coasts, but lots and lots and lots of flat land. No jungle, no desert. And the people will be disciplined, and they'll be hardworking, and they'll be law-abiding. At the same time, they'll be relaxed enough to really enjoy life. And he said, Satan beat that. And Satan said, easy, wait till you see their neighbors.
I saw that one coming. I saw it coming. It's this Aussie and New Zealand joke thing that you guys have with each other. It's so awesome.
We like making fun of ourselves in Australia. We don't bring ourselves too seriously. The funny thing is, if I did that to Americans about Canada, they don't think it's funny at all.
Yeah, but then you could talk about like Canada versus the US or something, you know? Anyhow, that's a good one. And I can see why, especially in Australia and New Zealand, people would love that. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. I'm going to actually cut out that clip and put it up with them and see how that goes. Now, I've got a question for you. If you don't mind, how old are you?
71.
71. Now, there's not very many, like demographically, 71-year-olds on TikTok, much less, YouTube and Facebook, but especially TikTok and Instagram. And you're kind of publishing across multiple platforms. Was there some hesitation in the beginning where I assume you or somebody on your team thought it's a good idea to start publishing stuff there? Tell me about how you got into it and if age was ever an issue for you.
It never came up actually because I don't do the posting myself. Mm-hmm. Joel does all this. I provide the raw materials and the video clips and everything else, but he does it. So he just automatically did it. But the very strange thing about this is that we have an extremely odd demographic in terms of our fans. Our top demographic is 15 to 25, which is not normally the audience that normally want services done, nor are they peak for franchise. Not too many 16-year-olds want to buy a franchise. They can't drive in the country anyway. So, but we just have this brand image, which is so powerful, but people love it. The kids love it. They really do. It's a huge thing in Australia, especially about the Jim's brand, and I'm the person behind the brand. It's a funny thing. I had my son gets hugely embarrassed. He's 13 years old, and he didn't take his bathers to school one day, so I drove down to take them to him. He was in the by the swimming pool, took them, and I threw it at the road and said, "Stupid kid!" And then the other kids worked out who his father was. And oh my goodness, your father's Jim. That was so they were in there. They wanted to be his friends and come to his parties. He was so embarrassed. I went to pick him up from a school party, and he said, "It texted me, Dad, don't get out of the car. Don't get out of the car." So the old Jesus somehow seems to relate to that. I don't know why.
Makes sense. So that's hilarious. My kids also. I mean, I don't have as big a presence as you do. It's most of my clients that do, but at the same time, every now and then someone spots me on the street, especially when I'm traveling either in the US or Australia, and it's an interesting experience if my kids are with me. Tell me how you're seeing the content you're putting out on social media. Are you seeing a correlation between like a cause and effect in your business and social media? And if so, what is that?
Oh, massive. Look, before COVID, we had about 3,800 franchisees who were stuck there for about 3 years. We weren't growing. We're a business that likes recessions. We have lots of clients. We have, like last year, we had about a third of our leads were knocked back. We got surplus demand. Our problem is franchisees. And we just, in a reasonably good economy, we couldn't attract franchisees. During COVID, I made a bit of a fuss because the local state government here stopped independent workers from working contractors. And I got really riled up my people and went on TV and did all kinds of exposure about that, about how stupid it was, the whole system. There was no health reason. There isn't, because we've taken it to court to try to say, what was your reason? No, they can't give it. It was just a stupid, nasty, silly, brutal decision by government for political reasons. Okay, so I became very well known for that, became quite unpopular. Two of my daughters wouldn't speak to me. I had 10 children. Two of them, they were so horrified.
You have 10 children.
Mother to divorce me and this kind of stuff. They were really furious. But with time, as it went on, I started to get more purchase, and people started saying, hey, but you're right too. Why are all these council workers working in groups and individuals are allowed to doing the same job? And so the tide of public opinions to a large extent turned, and I became known as a public figure. And then at that time, we were boosting all the social media, and I became very well known. Because in the past, people knew the brand because there's thousands of trailers and stuff, but they didn't know me. But then I became known myself, and it just sort of took off in an amazing way. We just couldn't believe that the degree of interest in that, especially in the younger demographics, it just got to be huge. And the effect of that was extraordinary. So we were growing during COVID, which we hadn't beforehand. Partly we thought, well, maybe this is because it's because people they're losing their jobs. They need something to do. They couldn't do restaurants and so forth. So they're buying franchises. So that's reasonable. They are growing. That's fine. Okay. But then COVID stops and we kept on growing. And we like unemployment. I don't like unemployment, but it's good for the business because it also people lose their jobs.
Need alternate, they're looking for something new, right?
We've had the tightest labor market in living history, with the biggest demand for workers, and we're still growing, and we're growing fast. We hit 5,000 about 2 months ago. We're now up to about 5,060. I mean, it's just insane. We've got record numbers in trading. So I can't explain it in any other way, Ken, except social media. We have a very strong social media presence, but we do it all the time. It's daily. I was out there yesterday. I was actually doing brush cutting and mowing lawns and digging over garden beds because people love this kind of stuff. It's all very Jimmy, it seems to.
So do you spend a significant amount of your time actually on the tools?
No, not for.
It's mostly for the video, right? So how long ago was the last time you actually got paid to do lawn work or landscaping?
1988.
Okay, and since then you've just been working on the business, not in it, right?
I still do it myself. I actually mow my own lawn at my farm.
But you don't get paid for it, right?
Well, I paid for it. It's my own place. Yeah, so I love gardening. So I enjoy doing it as a hobby. But no, I don't charge for it these days. I don't think you can afford my
It's so interesting because like the way you say you love gardening and things like that. I don't know about Australia, but I'm Japanese. I kind of sound American because I went to American International School in Japan, and that's where I learned my English. But with my American peers, a lot of them pick their careers based on what's the potential income, and they couldn't whether they actually like doing the work is way down the list. And I think that's just a recipe for eventual suicide or depression, right? And
very bad idea. Yeah. Well, gardening, you see, it's a fairly low status job in terms of you working with your hands and so forth. You're like a manual labor.
It's quite therapeutic, isn't it?
They struggle to get the idea that somebody makes good money. We have a guy who started as a franchisee with us, and he was turning over close to $1 million a year within a couple of years.
Wow.
He's now one of our major franchisors. I mean, people can make very, very good money. But in fact, our average turnover, based on a recent survey, is just under $3,000 a week. Now, this is Australian dollars, but what it means is that you're clearing well over the average Australian income by doing something like gardening and lawn mowing in your own business, flexible hours. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity. And yet you put a job for say pre-COVID, we put a job for somebody helping finance. We're talking minimum wage here, Australian terms, $50,000 a year. We've got 100 applicants, half with degrees, to do a job like that. That guys wouldn't even get out of bed for that kind of money. So this is very foolish prejudice against manual. But one thing I like is my hands are actually quite calloused. I like having a rough feeling hands because
mine are really callous too, but not from garden work. It's mostly from hitting the gym regularly, which I'm quite religious about. how would you look at what you're doing? And what you're doing is very unique, and there's not very many people who are in the same business position as you. But I'd like to hear your advice for someone who's in business for themselves, an entrepreneur. They might be in the business of selling information online. They might be in the business of painting houses or servicing cars. I don't know, but in the services industry, if they haven't quite jumped into it, could you share some advice for someone like that? Like, how should they look at this and approach content creation and social media as it pertains to their business?
Look, talking about business in general, there's some very important principles. What you said before is very real too. Do something you love. People often ask me, what do you go into? What division? What makes the most money? I said, it's the wrong question. What do you enjoy doing? Do you love cars, car detailing? You love gardening, mowing? You love electronics, something like antennas? You love dogs, dog wash? I mean, pick something that you enjoy doing. And if you don't enjoy what you're doing, what have you got to share anyway? This is the start. So do what you love. And then what you do is you go out every day and you ask yourself the question, how can I do this better? How can I do it faster? How can I have a better finish? Like when I was mowing lawns, I was fanatical about edging. And I was one of the first contractors in Australia back in the 70s as a student to have a brush cutter, which you can do all the edges around the trees without rim barking them and training balls and stuff. So you can do a much better job, but you've got to pick it up clean, but you've got to do it fast. So you have this obsessive, do something you love and just try to be really, really good at it. That's actually a very good recipe for business. And every day is minuscule, tiny changes of improvement. Now, if you go to social media, it's the same thing. What are you doing? You're showing people something that you enjoy doing, that you believe in, and that you're good at. And if you can do that in a way that communicates well with people, then people will be interested in how you do it. This guy, Dan, I was telling you before, the guy who's turning over close to $1 million a year, he's a high school dropout. He dropped out of school at 15. So he's not the kind of person you'd expect to be hugely successful. He's now in his 20s. He's a multi-millionaire. He's a wealthy guy. How he sees it, he just went in and he did the job and he worked out ways of doing it. And he teaches others how to do it. And quite a few people he's actually mentored are making several $100,000 a year now because he's good at what he does. And everybody learns. And there's a lot of things I've learned from him too about the way he does things that we've learned from him. He's got all kinds of videos all over the place about how he does it because he was so good at it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And what about like people who say, well, is this going to make me money? Like, what do you say to that? Because in my business, we create content and there's not necessarily a direct ROI correlation between, not like an ad, for example, that you put on TV or on social media these days, but organic content. If someone says, when's it going to make me money? How do you answer that?
I'd say you're coming from the wrong angle. I would never put the money first. Money should always be something that comes out of it. You should do what you love. You should do it well. And money, if you do that and you keep a reasonable eye on the bottom line, you'll tend to make money. It's like launching the franchise is a perfect example of that. I made this decision not to take anybody that I thought might fail. No, I thought that was a bad business decision. It turned out to be one of the best business decisions in my life, but it wasn't fundamentally made for money reasons. I didn't think if I do this, I'll make more money. I think I don't want my franchisees to fail. I have a very strong emotional connection with my franchisees. So I hate people failing. It's the worst thing. It gets me more upset than anything. So if you're thinking of what you're doing, you're trying to help people. That is the idea. Like one of the ways that we talk about, when I was selling lawn mowing rounds, I was initially very bad at that because I'm not very personable. I wasn't good at selling. And then I went to see somebody in my church who was at an advertising agency and to ask him, so I thought I might need an agent. And he actually spent a half an hour telling me about advertising. And then at the end of it, everything he knew, just freely gave out the information. At the end of it, he said, look, you don't really need an advertising agent, go and do this. And I thought, well, if I ever do need an advertising agency, I would use this guy because his only concern was my welfare and the welfare of my business. And therefore, he sold me on his business. So when I saw that, I thought, I wonder if this could work for selling lawn mowing rounds. So what I would do is when somebody rang me I'd start asking the questions. You know what the cut of a lawn mowing round is? We just want each job done once. And then I'd give information and help them and give them advice on what to buy, where to buy, how to advertise and how to do things. And if they actually asked me, if they came to see me and asked my advice as to what was the better business, mine or another one, I would advise them properly. I would tell them to go and buy another one if it was a better deal. And as soon as I started doing that, stopped worrying about money, started worrying about the person I was dealing with, I started to actually make a lot more money and do a lot better.
Yeah.
But the heart came first.
Yeah.
And the money later. And I would say the same thing applies to whatever you're doing in digital media. Do what you love doing and do it for the sake of the person you're dealing with. And if you do that well and just keep a little bit of an eye on the bottom line, you'll tend to do all right. I mean, I'm hopeless at money. I make stupid mistakes all the time. I really do. But I'm very, very strong on caring about my people. You know, we had a guy yesterday just rang me up. And every one of my 5,000 plus franchisees has my phone number and my email address. And he rang me up and said, I got real problems in my division, which is security doors. It's this and this is going so pammy. We started to talk to him. Now, what I'm doing is try to arrange for him to go to another division where there's a lot more work. Now, this is actually one of my direct franchisees. I'm going to be losing from this if it goes somewhere else. But I don't care. I want this guy to be successful. That to me it's great. That was a high point of my day. And I'm still following up to see what's happening. And we're actually looking at other people in the division, see if we can help them to go. And again, I'm going to personally lose out of it, but I don't care. Have that attitude and you'll be successful. That's my.
I think it's an attitude of abundance that really differentiates. You know, scarcity is, you know, you just wanting to hoard as much of the business or income as possible, scared that there's not enough for everybody. Abundance is, you know, there's enough for go. No, it's a bigger pie. And we can all share it, right? There's enough for everybody. And and a pie is a circle, so it comes back around. And it's just the way it works.
Okay, we have people from the competing franchise systems. We had a guy from the States who had a gardening type franchise system. And he had no interest in becoming part of Jim's. And I said, come over, do our full course, just pay the same price as anybody else, cost about $1,500. Franchisee training, franchisor training, learn everything you wanted from us and then go back and use it on your own business. We've done that more than once. So. Just giving things away. Yeah.
Now, you said earlier something? You said you've made a lot of mistakes to do with money. Would it be okay with you? And now here's the reason I'm doing this is there's so many listeners who are not at the level you are with 5,000 franchisees, multi 8-figure business, and they might look at you and say, "Well, I can't do that." I want to bring it down and just help everybody realize, we're all human. Could you just share a few mistakes that you made along the way that might be a learning point for our listeners?
Okay, the biggest single mistake I've made, and I had to say I made it repeatedly, is to go into something I don't really understand. Like, for example, I was just launched the franchise and I decided I wanted to go into a holiday resort. I had this real dream of a holiday resort and stuff. And basically it cost me a packet and wiped me out and lost my house and everything. And this was while the business was still building, the mowing business was still building. In more recent years, I tried to get a psychologist to go. Well, I succeeded, but it cost me a fortune, wasn't worth it. Tried to do a mower shop way back in the past, didn't work. A computer shop didn't work. Tried what else did I do? A factory to make trailers. That was a disaster, cost me a fortune. I mean, I keep on doing things that I really don't know much about. I hope I'm more disciplined these days and I've learned what I'm not good at. So that is one very fundamental mistake. And sometimes when money keeps on coming in too easily, you start getting slack and you let the staff numbers rise and so forth and don't keep an eye on it. It's all very exciting and stuff. And then you come to a financial crunch and you start to run out of money. You think, I'm going to stop this. So I don't know. I'm actually a lousy businessman, Ken. I really am. If I look at my own career and I say, how can anybody who's such an idiot make any money at all? I don't really understand it, to be quite honest. But I do other things well.
No, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And I think I've done the same thing a few times. Something looks like such a great opportunity. Somebody else is really fired up about it, wants to partner with me. And then, I open up my checkbook and 6 months later, I realize I don't like it. And all the arrows are pointing in the wrong direction.
Stick with what you know is the best thing and work from that. We understand the service industry very well. It's something we're good at. And it's surprisingly enough, it doesn't matter whether it's mowing or cleaning or dog wash. They're all very, very similar. Somebody contacts for a service, we go out and do it. you get into different things like site-based franchise or other kinds of business. They look good on the outside, but you don't understand what's going on. So if you're expert in something, work from that, from an area of strength, and then gradually expand your business in other direction. But don't think there's something else. Nothing that looks easy is easy. I also say another thing, very good, just to overall investment advice: never invest in anything that's based on the idea that somebody will pay you more, because on the whole, you'll
the greater fool fallacy, right?
Yeah, go greater fool fallacy. Just go for something that's got real value. I would never want to be in a business or an investment that I couldn't see some genuine benefit from the person at the other end. I'm like in franchising. That's an easy thing to say. You look at statistics of people who go into business, like a cleaning or a gardening business. Okay, you look it up on the internet. The chances of you surviving the first year is between 5 and 10%. Our relevant figure, 88%. I'd like to say it's 100%, but it's not. But it's a lot better. But then you do things like you put better training in place and you watch it and you see the attrition rate improve. Used to be high, used to be about 70%. Better training, gone down. Every session you do, everybody you talk to, every design of the system, it's all said, how can I improve this performance? Work with what you know, and thousands of little improvement every day of my life, and including Christmas Day, Easter, Sunday, anything. I'm asking myself the same question: how can I do it better? How can we improve? Never, ever, ever can be good enough.
Amazing. Now, just for anybody who's listening this far, and we've been talking like a full 40 minutes, that obviously very, very interested in your story. Otherwise, they wouldn't be listening at this point. If someone wants to find about how to, get into your services or get, you describe these weekly meetings you have, what's the best place for them to go and get that information?
Well, Jim, www.jims.net. Or if you want to, you can email me direct, jim@jims.net. My email address is very open.
Okay, perfect.
I answer emails within, if it's relevant. I'm not about marketing. I get a lot of those too, which are just, it's delete. But I'm very open. Anybody with new ideas, anybody with a genuine interest, I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Email's great.
Well, guys, we'll put the links down below. Be sure to reach out to Jim. Jim, I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. Now, I just want to say, I've brought a lot of people on here, and most people come from the internet marketing space where things are very digital. You come from like literally soil, right? And dirt and plants. And the word I have that keeps coming to mind as I'm speaking to you is grounded. You're grounded. And my impression of you is you're grounded in not just your business principles, but in like human relations, like your interest in biology and how that affects history. It's all to do with, humanity and Earth. And I think that there's just this kind of central groundedness about you that makes people like your clients, that makes people like your franchisees, that makes people like me who's having this conversation with you feel very comfortable having this conversation because of that. So I just wanted to share that with you because that's the impression I just kept getting over and over throughout this conversation. I think it's something that more people in the world, if they allow themselves to get as grounded as you are, then they'd probably find more happiness and success and more money probably than if they just went chasing the money like a lot of people are.
I think one of the most understated virtues in business is humility. It's the willingness to recognize you make mistakes and that you're not perfect and that you need people to do things that you can't do and to appreciate what other people do. If you're too full of yourself, you don't listen enough, and that's really fatal.
It sure is. All right, I've got to wrap this up. Jim, thank you so much for joining us, guys. If you haven't yet, check out the links below. Drop Jim an email, tell him that you heard him on the podcast or watch this video. Also check out his website. And that's it for now, and I'll see you next time.